Erythritol, a zero-calorie sweetener, is now shown to link to heart attack and stroke. That is the recent finding in a journal article that we received. And today we will discuss that. Since erythritol is one of the most common zero-calorie sweetener that low-carbers, keto dieters, and those who wishes to lower down their carbohydrate and glucose load in their body are using. So first, what is erythritol? So erythritol is a sugar alcohol like sorbitol that is usually used because it is sweet when it comes to taste, about 75% the sweetness of a regular sugar. However, it doesn't spike your blood sugar the way table sugar does. So that is why it is very, very popular, and the taste is somewhat the same except for this menthol effect. However, today we will discuss erythritol. There are so many who are bothered because of this article. So we will go through one by one about 6 items that you can consider if ever you try to take erythritol. So with this study, we have to remind you that in our low carb way of life, I actually never said that erythritol or any other alternative sweeteners are safe to consume. That is why erythritol in general is in our caution list. So I want to make that emphasis first and foremost that erythritol is in our caution list. To remind you of that one, I will show you our food list. So we have a food list wherein you can see there that it's divided into safe, caution, and danger list. And if we will zoom that in, we will try to zoom that in so that you can see that erythritol together with other sweeteners are actually in our caution list. Zero calorie, zero carb sweeteners in drinks using allulose, stevia, monk fruit, erythritol. So this was made, I think, way back 2019, 2020, way before this study was published. And this is the reason why, because these processed sweeteners are actually not really natural for us to consume on a day-to-day basis, just the same as regular sugar is, that we should take them on a day-to-day basis, because consuming them, it's as if we are in an all-time, all year round harvest season, and by nature we shouldn't be on harvest season for the longest time. So at least we have that covered right now, that erythritol is really in our caution list. So moving forward, we will discuss the different kinds of low carb. So the different kinds of low carb levels, we actually suggest that if ever you cannot control consuming sweets, then you can consume those alternative sweeteners, but only if you are already at the top of your health or generally healthy, or you've already healed your illness. So I will present to you our low carb levels. So give me a few seconds to show you this one. So this is our 5 low carb levels that we can think of. So this one, we can show it that there. So we have 5 levels in our low carb journey, and level 4 and 5 are those people who are in need of highest kind of healing. Serious healing like cancers, metabolic syndrome with end stage organ damage like chronic kidney diseases and autoimmune diseases, allergies, and for those with carbohydrate addiction. If you have problem and control, if you have problem when it comes to moderation, then all the more you should be sticking only to the safe list, and carbohydrate intake should be around just less than 20 grams. So you can eat foods that are phytotoxin and chemical free, so all organic, so safe to say the grass-fed meat, the wild caught fish, seafoods, organic eggs, those things you can enjoy. At low carb level 4, those with manageable lifestyle diseases, so including here diabetes, hypertension, obesity, fatty liver, and others with inflammation like aches and pains, joint pains, and for those that are still recovering. So if you are still recovering with those illness, so generally you are still not allowed or advised to take those alternative sweeteners. And only at level 1, 2, and 3, that we can accommodate those sweeteners. So these are generally healthy population without any risk of developing those, especially if they control their carbohydrate and inflammatory food intake. You can accommodate that. But of course, it still should be taken with caution. So those two are the inherent things in erythritol that you should be thinking when you take it. Take it with caution. And number two, of course, take it only when you are healthy or generally healthy. Now, we will now go to our study. So there's four items here in addition to what we've discussed relating to our study. So I will show you the abstract of this article for us to delve deeper into that. So, for this article, I want to emphasize that the result is actually just association and not causation. So, what does this mean? It means that there's no direct cause and effect when it comes to the presence of erythritol and the presence of cardiovascular diseases, because they studied these individuals, and after 3 years they noted that those individuals with higher or marked amount or levels of erythritol in their bloodstream as compared to the normal subjects, as compared to the previous normal levels of erythritol, were also found to have higher risk of developing cardiovascular outcomes in the form of myocardial infarction or heart attack or stroke. So all of those cardiovascular events, but these are just association. You cannot make it as a causal. It's not a causal event that the one is causing the other, but they just noticed that those people with higher erythritol levels in their blood also had higher risk of developing those complications. So it's not causation. So as much as erythritol is in our caution list that we should be taking with caution, we have to be fair that the study is also not that appropriate when it's presented a while ago in that article and in that news clip, because it will drive people to be very, very afraid. It's okay to be a little cautious, to be a little skeptical, but to live in overwhelming fear is also not good. So we are discussing this just to be fair and, of course, just to be objective about it. So it's just association and not causation. And number four, this study was actually done among individuals that are already higher risk to begin with. So around 75% of them already had coronary artery disease, coronary heart disease, even before the start of the study, and around one-fifth or 20% of them already had diabetes, and generally they are already around 60 to 70 years old when it comes to their age. So you can see here that these population are already patients, are already higher risk of developing cardiovascular events to begin with, maybe with or without erythritol. And who knows, maybe they're trying to just improve their lifestyle, their outcome by shifting to some sugar alternatives. But we have to take this into consideration. So this study was first seen among studying around 3,000, almost 3,000 participants with this profile. So they are already at higher risk to begin with. And for them to know how it creating cardiovascular event, the researchers of this study also made another study among healthy population. So among healthy individuals, they saw that there is increase in clotting leading into possible thrombosis, that is a prerequisite in thrombosis, and eventually blockade of arteries leading into those cardiovascular events, that it is really increased after sustained and marked intake for 2 days. So yes, it can really have that effect, but mind you of the terminologies that they use, it's sustained and marked. So we will highlight that here.
So basically, this study showed that after a bolus intake of erythritol, there was a sustained and marked increase in erythritol blood levels, which is unusual as compared to normal. However, we have to take note that there are factors that we consider before we get scared and be so afraid with these results. First is that the bolus amount of erythritol that they gave is around 30 grams of erythritol, and the usual serving of erythritol in packets, in small one serving packets, is just around zero point 0.5 to 2 grams each. And usually, if we are careful, especially if you are a low carber, you are aware of this, that we shouldn't take it in unlimited amount. We cannot really take in 30 grams in a day. And also, this generalization might be too abrupt, especially that the number of volunteers in this study is just 8. So they tested it among 8 healthy volunteers and they already made this conclusion.
The bigger picture if ever some of your relatives or loved ones will ask you about it, because sooner or later it can circulate and it can drive again fear. And of course, as much as it's okay to be cautious, but if you will say no to erythritol and just go back to your previous high sugar intake, then maybe that's another problem that we should be avoiding. And lastly, when it comes to these things, there is another study why, in the first place, we put this erythritol and other alternative sweeteners never in our safe list, but just in our caution, and even can be put in our danger list, because the previous study showed that intake of alternative sweeteners, even if it's stevia, even if it's monk fruit, even if it is those organic alternative sweeteners, are linked to other unhealthy behaviors like overeating and craving of other processed foods. Because sometimes people who choose to eat sugar-free foods, they might have this tendency to be a little entitled to eat other unhealthy foods just because they said no to a sugary and said yes to sugar-free foods. And when it comes to our brain function, it is linked into unhealthy craving. So that is why, especially for those who have problem when it comes to control, when it comes to moderation, and those with carb addiction, these things should be taken into account. So again, erythritol is an alternative sweetener that is considered as low carb, considered as keto friendly, considered as zero calorie. It is about 75% the sweetness of regular sugar, and it is used to bulk up monk fruit and stevia, because monk fruit and stevia are usually 200 to 600 times sweeter than sugar. And so they put erythritol, because erythritol can easily be transformed into a consistency that is somewhat similar to sugar, so that for those who are using this as an alternative, they can easily use this one as 1:1 ratio, the same way as they do with real sugar. And again, we have this discussion as erythritol linking to heart attack and stroke study, and I hope you already have somewhat a better picture on how to approach erythritol next time. I'm Dr. Josephine Grace Rohatan, also known as Diet Doctora here in the Philippines, and I'm here to discuss you about that. And so, since now that you've come to know the considerations when it comes to this study, what can you do? So, what can you do if you want to be on the safest side? Then it's very simple. Don't take it. That's the safest way to do it. Just very, very simple. However, I know it might not be possible, especially if we are so used with having those some sweets in our celebrations, special occasions, or we are trying to invite others to say no to these sugary foods. Then those can be like the bridge, like a bridger from high carb to low carb. And so if ever you will choose to take it, know how to take it with caution. So, caution in two ways: amount, how much you take in a day, and of course, frequency. So, for me, I think from time to time, I still have those goodies. We have friends who are cooking and sending us their low carb baked goods for us to try. So, from time to time, we take. But one thing that I know, I'm not overdoing it, because in the first place, we're only eating OMAD, just one meal a day, or TMAD at most, 2 meals a day. And usually when we eat we prioritize our proteins, our meat, our eggs. Those are the things that we eat first. And we save the desserts, these low carb goodies, on the last part so that we are already full, we are already satisfied. And when we take them, just so enough for us to try. And usually we take them maybe once or twice in a week at most. So you take them in caution, consider amount, consider frequency. And how about if you have cravings? What can you do? So you can do the salt fix by Dr. Nico. He wrote a book about it. Whenever you have cravings, and I myself tried it, my loved ones tried it. If ever you have sweet cravings, you can just take a pinch of salt, put it in your mouth, and then observe for 5 minutes. And usually the sweet craving will be gone. This is because there is actually essentially no need for exogenous glucose intake. There's no need for us to take in glucose from external source, especially if you're not taking hypoglycemic drugs for diabetes like insulin and other medications, because our body has the capacity to create its own glucose through the process called gluconeogenesis. But our body frequently needs replenishment, especially if you are on low carb. It frequently needs sodium. Is very important. It's the most abundant electrolyte, extracellular electrolyte in the body that washed away whenever we're peeing or we're sweating, that we need to replenish from time to time. And of course, number four, you can also make sure that you can improve your health not by overthinking about erythritol or sugar-free products, but by consuming real nutrient-dense foods and avoid those in caution and danger list, especially if you are not yet fully healed. So focus more on our safe list. So I will share with you again our safe list. If ever you wish to have a copy of this one, it's just available in our website. So our safe list, it's usually generally for those who doesn't have any contraindication to eat this one. Something you can eat as long as you do not pair it with the ones in caution and danger list. So a mixture of both fats and proteins can be eaten together. Avoid eating pure proteins only, because if it's pure proteins, no fat at all, then you might not be able to fully get the benefit of metabolic flexibility of fueling both on ketones or coming from fats and glucose. So meat and poultry products, pork, beef, lamb, turkey, eggs, all the kind of meats that you can think of. Vegetables, just the low carb ones. For the oil, you can have these. Avoid seed oil, factory made oils. And seafoods are our best friends. For the fruits, try to not think them right now, especially if you are still starting. But if you are already a pro in low carb, you know you can accommodate some of the low carb fruits. So these food lists you can get and download in our website at jgr10md.com. So that's Josephine Grace Rojo10md.com. You can download that in PDF file for you to print on your own. And again, as a reminder, improve your health by consuming real nutrient dense foods. And if you do that, you no longer need to worry about these kinds of study that are using actually foods that are in our caution list that we should be avoiding in the first place. So I think that's it for today. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you like this video. You can support by subscribing to our YouTube and of course to our Facebook channels. And for more information, you can visit our website. I do personalized assessment there, just telemedicine consultation, just exchange of emails for me to assess your condition right now at www.jgr10md.com. And for Filipinos, we have an ongoing masterclass online that you can watch on demand. It's on sale right now at lcfmasterclass.com. Right now, it's still in Filipino, but soon we will have this in English. If you have a friend who's Filipino who can translate it with you, all the better. You can enjoy this structured learning program. So remember again to stick to the safe list of JGC Rojo Food List to make sure that you are going to have a very, very nice healing journey. So this is again your Diet Doctora, Dr. Josephine Grace Rohatan. Always remember to stay low carb so that we all stay safe. Bye bye, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you so